Let's dive into the mysteries of the sea. Whether it's the smaller bodies of water or the vast oceans that cover most of our planet, they are vital to life as we know it. But what truly stuns people is not just the abundance of marine creatures, but the sheer size of some of them. In fact, the ocean is home to some of the largest and most dangerous beings ever to exist. With that in mind, here are the 20 largest and most terrifying sea creatures that have ever roamed the depths. Number 20. Camarasaurs. The best way to describe the first creature on our list today is, if you picture the head and body of an octopus and then you shove it all into a cone shell, that's basically what this thing is. As its fossil record would prove, this extinct genus of giant seapods is said to have lived approximately 470 to 440 million years ago. The marine creatures were among the largest predators of their time, and their sheer size and appearance made them the subject of fascination in paleontology. It's believed that the tentacles of this creature likely had a set that protruded from its head and were used for capturing prey. As for its eyeballs, it likely had a large and well-developed set of eyes to locate prey in the ancient oceans. Fossils of these creatures are related to nautiloids and have been found in what is now North America, Europe, and parts of Asia, suggesting a wide distribution among its species. It likely used tentacles to grasp onto its prey and bring it into its beak-like mouth, which was capable of crushing hard shells. Its large size and predatory role highlight the diversification of marine life during the period in which it lived. They lived in shallow marine environments, particularly in warm tropical seas that were common during the period that it existed. Just the shell of the beast was said to be about 5 meters long, so when you add that to the body, it was probably around 6 meters in length. The shell was said to be long, conical, and chambered, providing buoyancy with each chamber filling up with gas or liquid to help it navigate through the water. Well, that's about all from the waters of the world and the incredibly large creatures that have lived there or live in it now. Number 19. The blue whale. Heading now to the modern day, we'll have to talk about one of the most beautiful, gentle, and massive creatures that you'll find on Earth, and that would be the blue whale. They are creatures that are so precious to some people that they're willing to fight in order to keep them alive. The biggest question that many have about the blue whale is simply, well, how big is it really? And that's actually a little bit more difficult to answer than you may think. After all, the only way to know for sure is to measure one of these massive creatures, and that's difficult to do when they're constantly swimming in the oceans. Because of that, there have been many claims about how they are well over 30 meters in length, when in fact the largest one ever confirmed to be properly recorded was just under 30 meters, with the official measurement being 29.9 meters. Folks, we could have a problem here. Now, there are official recordings of them getting up to 32 meters in length, but those have been heavily disputed. That particular whale wasn't weighed, so it skews the results, if you will. It's at this point that I should remind everyone that I don't actually write these scripts. Somebody else does. So, if they don't make sense, you can't blame me. As for the weight of the blue whale, it can easily get up to 200 tons, which makes it both the largest and heaviest creature in the world today. There are some who claim that it is the largest creature to have ever existed, but that's difficult to back up at times due to prehistoric creatures. Even still, these are the gentle giants of the ocean, as they are filter feeders, meaning that they only eat the smallest of fish to get by, and they're absolutely fine with that. They're also creatures that can be both solitary when they want to be or choose to be in a small group. Sadly, many have hunted the blue whale because of the resources in their bodies, almost causing them to go extinct before conservation efforts were put into place. Even then, the pollution of the ocean and other factors are constantly placing these creatures in danger. We need to be better because these whales are a key part of the world, and we would be foolish to allow them to die out because of humanity's greed and stupidity. Number 18. The oarfish. The next fish is honestly one that is a bit indicative of humanity's views on things that we don't understand at first. When the oarfish first washed up on a beach for humans to find, the people and the scientists who discovered it and researched it thought that it was actually a hoax. They thought that it was not a real thing and that it was something that somebody had tried to make up to fool them. That's how big and out of the ordinary it was at the time. But how big can these things actually get? Well, the biggest oarfish that was ever recorded was about 8 meters, and you can find multiple pictures of these oarfish being held up by multiple people due to how big they are. They are, in fact, the largest bony fish in the world today. They're also known for being deep-sea creatures up until they know that they're about to die. They will then float to the surface of the oceans, and that's why we keep finding them washed up on the beach. It's also believed that the creature is the origin of the sea serpent myth that some sailors told over the ages. And if you saw one of these by the side of your boat, well, you might probably think that they look like a monster as well. Number 17. The lion's mane jellyfish. It's actually rather fascinating to talk about the lion's mane jellyfish, and not for the reason that you may be thinking. Because if you look at the core body of the creature itself, it's actually not all that big. This body is actually about 2 meters in length. So, then why is it on this list? Well, that's because the rest of its body is actually massive and makes it one of the most unique creatures that we'll look at today. Specifically, the tentacles of the lion's mane jellyfish are able to extend over 36 meters in length. That's right, its body length is basically just its tentacles, and that means that when it goes through the ocean's waters, it makes its presence felt even if you don't see it. That becomes a problem because you do not want to be caught at the tail end of this body, as its tentacles will not only sting you, they will actually stick to you. Now, if you do get caught in them, you're going to be in some serious trouble, as you'll have the tentacles basically wrapped around you while you're trying to fend them off. Oh, and because they're basically wrapped up in bundles, you're not just going to hit one tentacle. You'll actually end up hitting multiple, which means that you're going to get stung even more. Each lobe does contain about 70 to 150 tentacles, which can be up to about 4 different rows. And because those tentacles can be quite thin, you'll never be able to just get out of the way unless you see the body first, and then you can predict where the tentacles are going. Oh, and good luck with that. When you mix in its tentacles and body together, you'll technically get the longest animal in the world, but most don't see it that way, as those tentacles are an extension of the body. Also, they can detach from the main body, hit you while drifting in the ocean, and then will still be able to sting you even when not attached. The good news is that even if you are stung by one, it's not going to kill you. It will only hurt a whole hell of a lot, and you can get rid of that pain with vinegar when you're back on the surface. Still, I would not want to be caught in this thing's grasp, and neither should you. Number 16. The colossal squid. The colossal squid is another massive deep-sea creature that may be far bigger than you would expect. Curiously, while some claim that the giant squid is longer, other estimates would put the colossal squid between 10 and 14 meters in length, which would make it bigger than the previous squid that I talked about. Regardless of the length question, the weight of the colossal squid is heavier than the giant squid, which means that it has a bit more bulk to its mass. One fun fact is that this creature may have actually been heard of in the 1920s, but it wasn't until the 1980s that the first 2 specimens were actually found ashore and then put under study. That goes to show just how much more we need to learn about the depths of the ocean. Now it's time for today's topic. In a jaw-dropping revelation, a diver off the coast of the Bahamas has captured ultra-rare photographs of a massive sea creature that seems to defy the natural order. The images depict a colossal marine animal resembling an ancient marine reptile, estimated to be over 40 feet long, gliding effortlessly through the depths of the ocean. With its elongated body, powerful tail, and massive jaws, the creature looks like it belongs in the prehistoric era rather than our modern oceans. The diver, who was part of a marine research expedition, was initially exploring coral reefs when he stumbled upon the enigmatic creature. It was like something out of a nightmare, the diver reported. I couldn't believe my eyes. Marine biologists are baffled by the sighting. Some speculate it could be a relic of the Mesozoic era, a living fossil thought to be extinct for millions of years. Others are hesitant to confirm its existence, citing the lack of physical evidence beyond the photos. The scientific community remains divided, but one thing is clear. This discovery raises profound questions about the mysteries lurking in the uncharted depths of our oceans. Could this be evidence of a hidden marine world we are yet to uncover? Let us know your thoughts below. Number 15. The fin whale. I promise that I will eventually be done with whales, but since they do inhabit large sections of our ocean, why not talk about them now and in great numbers? The fin whale gets special recognition in this book for the simple reason that it's the second largest whale species out there, behind the blue whale, which obviously makes it one of the biggest creatures in the world right now. Equally as important, it's a species that inhabits all but the coldest and ice-ridden waters of the world, which is a pretty far reach for a whale species. But like the blue whale, it only eats relatively small creatures, which makes you wonder how it ever gets full with that massive frame. However, that does come at a cost, as these were yet another species that were drastically hunted in the 1800s and 1900s by whalers. It became so bad that it's said that 750,000 of them were killed over the course of 70 years in the southern hemisphere alone, which is kind of insane. While conservation efforts have helped to bring them back from the brink, the rebirth and repopulation rate has not been the fastest. Many are saying that even by 2100, the numbers won't be the same as they were in the pre-whaling days. Again, people have to be better, or amazing creatures like these will end up being lost forever. Number 14. The giant squid. Now, at last, I'm getting to talk about one of the most mythical creatures of the deep, and that would be the giant squid. This is one of those creatures that helped to create the legend of the Kraken among sailors, and its length does back up part of that legend, even if it's still not long enough or strong enough to crush a boat like you would see in Pirates of the Caribbean. So, then that leaves the question, how big do they actually get? Due to a special form of gigantism, they apparently can grow to be about 10 meters in length. However, there is a caveat in that, as these are deep-sea creatures and we don't get to see them all that often. That means that down in the depths that they call home, they could absolutely get bigger and longer than what we know. Well, nobody can possibly say how big and long, but some do claim that they've seen ones at over 20 meters in length, but many people just feel that those were high-sea stories. Number 13. The Mosasaurus. I'm going to talk about one former ocean creature that got a lot of fame in recent times due to its appearance in the first Jurassic World film. The Mosasaurus was a creature at the beginning of the film that entertained that big crowd before everything went haywire and then came in clutch to help take out the Indominus Rex. It was a creature once upon a time and was a big one for sure. Standard estimates of its size would put it at well over 15 meters in length, and there were also apparently multiple species of the Mosasaurus, so that means that it was a large species that absolutely filled up parts of the ocean millions of years ago. Now, obviously, it's been dead for quite a long time, but it's actually a species that was around much closer to humans than many of the dinosaurs that you know, as it was said to have gone extinct only about 66 million years ago. One of the reasons that it was such a powerful predator and definitely capable of taking out a genetically modified dinosaur is because of its powerful head. Its muscles, especially around its jaw, made it a powerful biter, and it could take a chunk out of just about pretty much everything. And I do mean pretty much everything, as it was one of the apex predators of the prehistoric Atlantic Ocean. It would go after just about anything and everything if it meant getting a meal. And for the record, there were plenty of creatures that had that mentality once upon a time. In fact, just like some of those other species, the Mosasaurus was known to attack its own kind. That's right, they could be cannibals when they really desired to be or had conflicts with other pods of their own kind. The ancient world was a wild place, and that should be enough to make you fear what it would have been like if these were really alive now and not just seen in Hollywood today. Number 12. The whale shark. When you hear the word shark, your mind likely goes immediately to creatures like Jaws, or you may think of a lot of shark attacks that take place all over the world. However, just like there are not as many shark attacks as you would expect each year, there are also plenty of sharks that are rather friendly to people and don't aggressively hunt animals. The biggest of the lot and the whole species would be the whale shark. These things are absolutely massive, hence their name, as they can be 18.8 meters in length, and you'll find them in pretty much every tropical ocean on the planet. Whale sharks have very large mouths and are filter feeders, which means that they feed almost exclusively on plankton and small fish. They pose absolutely no threat to humans. In fact, there are plenty of photos and videos of people getting close to these whale sharks without having any kind of issues at all. So, hopefully, this may help to curb some of your fears about sharks, and that's not the only kind of shark that I'll be talking about on the list today. Number 11. The Liopleurodon. I've talked plenty about modern-day creatures and how big they are, so now we're going to go back to prehistoric times for just a moment. The Liopleurodon is arguably one of the biggest ancient creatures that most know about because of history books and shows about the past. Not unlike many other prehistoric creatures and certain squids, the length of the ancient beast has been highly debated. On a certain BBC series, it was depicted as being over 25 meters in length, and yet, in reality, it was more like 10 meters at max. The body of the creature was made to be a great swimmer, using its special fins to rush in and ambush any piece of food that it sets its sight on. One look at the teeth on this creature, and you should be glad that you're not on its meal plan. Number 10. The sperm whale. The last whale that I showed you was the largest and arguably the most gentle of the species, but now I will show you one of the more aggressive kinds. You see, there are two types of whales that are known to be a bit more vicious than others, and I bet you can guess the first one, that being the orca, which is known to go after great white sharks at times. The other would be the sperm whale, which is far bigger and the largest of the toothed whales of the ocean. These ones are quite a bit bigger than orcas, as they can be 16 meters in length, and they put that body to work in various ways. For example, it's one of the very few mammals that can dive truly deep into the ocean, meaning that it's going to go after prey just about anywhere. As for its voice, it has the loudest cry in the world, anywhere up to 236 decibels, which is way louder than a jet engine or any bullet on Earth after it's fired. Due to its size and teeth, it is willing to go after all manner of prey, including octopuses, squids, rays, and even sharks. So yes, whales can be kind of friendly or they can be straight-up killers. Number 9. The Kronosaurus. Up next, we have another ancient beast that many people have been fascinated with over the years. The Kronosaurus was said to be between 9 and 13 meters in length and was apparently named after the Greek god Kronos because of its ferocity. That was backed up by its teeth, which were large and uniquely shaped. Most believe that its mouth was designed to go after large types of prey and literally take a huge chunk out of them. Said to have been in the waters around Australia, its massive head full of teeth and impressive wingspan would have made it able-bodied as an apex predator of those waters. It was apparently so big that it could swallow up some of its prey whole, which was proven by a sea turtle that was found to have died of suffocation within the beast's belly. That's kind of gross when you think about it. Number 8. The Plesiosaurus. One of the key factors of many ancient dinosaurs and beasts, both on land and in the waters, was having a massively long neck. We've seen them time and again with these creatures, and the Plesiosaurus is one of the most famous long-necked sea creatures of all of history. One of the reasons for it being so famous is because it's one of the few ancient dinosaurs of the past that we know looked this way because we have found a full skeleton of it. Actually, there have been multiple full skeletons found of this creature. Yet, ironically, despite the massively long neck, they only grew to be about 3.5 meters in length, which is still big but not as big as some of the other creatures that you've seen today. Even still, it must have been an interesting creature to observe in the water, making you wonder what it would be like to have seen it in today's world. Number 7. The Ichthyosaurus. Now, for things that I have a hard time pronouncing and probably said wrong, you can love it when fossil records aren't enough to help determine how big a fish is or isn't. This ancient critter was another one that had that problem, as its estimates were all over the place at times. At first, it was seen as maybe being around 9 meters in length, which is huge but not as big as others that you've seen. Then, some fossils popped up, and it was posited that it could have been up to 30 meters in length, which is massive. These days, the fin fish is believed to have been about 16 meters in length, which is a relatively nice size. The problem here is that the skeletons of these creatures did not always fossilize because not all of its body, including its skin, was made out of bone. So, it's hard to predict what you can't fully understand. It just makes you wonder what else we may be missing about this ocean creature. Number 6. The basking shark. The basking shark is the second largest living shark in fish species, followed by the whale shark. But despite its intimidating size, the basking shark is actually a gentle giant. It's harmless to humans, and it primarily feeds on plankton. The name comes from its habit of swimming slowly near the surface, appearing as though it's basking in the sun. They have a torpedo-shaped body, a pointed snout, and a cavernous mouth, which can open up to 3 feet. Their skin is typically grayish-brown with a rough texture, and they may have white blotches. While not as big as the whale shark, they can still reach about 8 meters in length, which makes quite a presence in the ocean when you're next to it. If you're wondering why its mouth is open like that, well, that's because it gets its food by slowly moving through the water with its mouth open and then uses its special gills to filter out what it catches and doesn't want, getting the nutrients from the meal in the process. You may swear that something this big would be a bit more aggressive in how it gets its prey, but it's simply fine chugging along and getting whatever it can. Nature is a wonder sometimes. Number 5. The giant manta ray. While hardly the biggest creature on the list, the giant manta ray is definitely the biggest of its kind, and that makes it quite special indeed. If you were to encounter one of these creatures under the sea, you would be in for a treat, as they can be well over 7 meters in wingspan. That's more than big enough to dwarf any kind of diver who may get down to its level. Like the blue whale, they are filter feeders and eat large quantities of zooplankton, which they gather with their open mouths as they swim. You could consider them to be another gentle giant of the ocean. Sadly, not all of the ocean creatures are as cool as these last two, but that's just because nature needs a balance between the cool stuff and that which is scary. There are multiple elements to the giant manta ray that are truly fascinating. For example, when they're swimming, they have 2 different patterns that they'll follow based on the area they're in. When they're in deep waters, they've been observed going in a straight line. But when they're in more shallow waters, they'll do more of a weaving pattern. As if that wasn't weird enough, they're also not literally going above the water and bursting into the air in order to get something. They don't just do that as individuals, though. They'll also form up in groups and take turns to sometimes do their own kind of aerial jumps. They even sometimes do somersaults in the air, which is kind of crazy to think about since they can get into groups of up to 50 members at times. You would be in for some clever Olympic-style routines if you got to see them in action. The giant manta ray is also very alert to its body and condition. Sometimes it'll get parasites and then go to cleaning stations in places like coral reefs so that other creatures can help to get them off. Life is grand when we all work together to make things easier for each other. Number 4. The giant Pacific octopus. I've talked about squids before, so it's only fair that I talk about the other kind of creature that you can find in the ocean that has really big tentacles, and that would be the octopus. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about the giant Pacific octopus, which is the largest octopus in the world. And it better be with a name like that. Now, admittedly, the giant Pacific octopus is not as big as its squid brethren. It can get up to about 5 meters from top to bottom. But when you measure its tentacles from tip to tip, you can sometimes find them to be over 6 meters in length. Another key fact about this creature is that it's one that truly does not mind the darkest depths of the ocean. It will go about 2,000 meters below sea level, and it doesn't mind the cold in those waters. Yet, they are sometimes still caught and even put into aquariums, which is a shame. Number 3. The ocean sunfish. While not the longest or even the largest fish on this list, the ocean sunfish deserves to be in this video because it is truly a massive being that really makes people's jaws drop when they see them. I mean, just one look at it, and that's not exactly how a fish is supposed to be shaped. These creatures are long and tall but also quite thin. Yet, because of their unique proportions, they can be up to 1,000 kilograms in weight. It's a bulky fish. In fact, even scientists are blown away by what this fish is like, and they aren't exactly sure how it developed to look this way. One of the strangest things about the ocean sunfish is that it lacks a true tail. Instead, it has a bizarre, truncated structure called a clavus, which helps it steer but doesn't provide the same propulsion as a regular fish tail. Because of this, sunfish rely on their large dorsal and anal fins to flap through the water in a peculiar, almost clumsy-looking motion. They are also covered in thick, leathery skin, which is riddled with parasites. Over 40 different species have been recorded living on or inside them. To rid themselves of these pests, ocean sunfish often bask near the surface, where seabirds pick the parasites off their skin. Despite their slow, drifting nature, they are capable of surprisingly deep dives, sometimes reaching depths of over 600 meters. Additionally, these behemoths lay more eggs than any other vertebrate on Earth, with females capable of releasing up to 300 million eggs at a time. As if all that weren't odd enough, sunfish also have an unusual diet, mainly consisting of jellyfish, which are not exactly the most nutritious meal. They compensate for this by consuming massive quantities, making up for the low-calorie content with sheer volume. Number 2. The Megalodon. I've talked about a lot of the non-aggressive sharks and how they are quite big in today's world. But what about the biggest shark of the ancient world? That would be the Megalodon, a creature so dangerous and aggressive that it was one of the apex predators of the ancient world's waters. Even its own species was not safe from its hunger. Now, as for how big it was not the biggest shark to have ever existed, as that title still belongs to the whale shark. But most estimates say that it was probably about 15 meters in length, which is still a really big shark, especially since that's more times than not double the size of the great white. And that's still not even talking about its razor-sharp teeth, which have been found in droves via fossils, and the fact that it's said to have needed to eat a couple of tons of food per day just to survive. That's where the cannibalism element comes into play, because if the Megalodon was not getting enough food, it would simply go after its own species, knowing that there was plenty of meat to be had on those bones. That's actually one of the presumed reasons why the Megalodon doesn't exist anymore. When the world went through one of its shifts in temperature, the oceans of the world got a lot cooler, and the shark was not able to cope and get around as well in those conditions. So, the pool of food was severely limited, and when you can't eat, you can't survive. Whether it simply lost all of its food, ate every other member of its species, or just succumbed to the atypical temperatures, it was no more. That is, unless you talk to Hollywood and certain conspiracy theorists, because they might tell you that there are ways it could still be alive today. But be grateful that those are just fantasies in the end. Number 1. Ichthyosaurus. Here's another famous ocean dweller from the past. Because if you were to look at the Ichthyosaurus, you may think, doesn't it look like a dolphin? And really, honestly, it does. It was just a bit bigger than a dolphin, coming in at around 3.3 meters in length. Furthermore, they were ram feeders, and their bodies were actually designed not to go swiftly through the water to get food with their mouths, but to do fast bursts of swimming that could last for quite a while. Despite their resemblance to modern dolphins, ichthyosaurs were actually reptiles, not mammals, meaning they laid eggs internally and gave birth to live young. Fossilized remains of pregnant ichthyosaurs have even been discovered, showing that they were well adapted for ocean life without ever needing to return to land. Their large eyes indicate that they likely had excellent vision, helping them hunt in deep, dark waters. Some species of ichthyosaur had long, slender snouts filled with sharp teeth, perfect for snapping up fish and squid. Researchers also believe they had countershading, with darker coloring on top and lighter on the bottom, making them less visible to predators lurking above or below. Interestingly, their fossils have been found all over the world, suggesting they were highly successful and widespread during the Mesozoic era. Some ichthyosaurs even grew to massive sizes, with certain species reaching lengths of over 15 meters, making them one of the largest marine predators of their time. Their streamlined bodies and powerful tails made them some of the most efficient swimmers of their era, helping them dominate the prehistoric seas. Which of these sea creatures and oceanic wonders fascinated you the most? Perhaps you're relieved that some no longer exist, or maybe you know of other massive ocean dwellers that should have made this list. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to check out the other amazing videos on your screen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.